The Galactic Military Academy's training grounds fell into an eerie silence. 23 cadets from 12 different species stood frozen, their various forms of eyes locked on the scene, unfolding before them. At the center of the courtyard, a human named Lena crouched on all fours, her face mere inches from Taro, a juvenile Kashari, a species whose adults stood 8 feet tall and were classified as apex predators across 7 star systems. Taro's striped fur bristled along his spine, each hair standing at attention like tiny weapons. His golden eyes narrowed to slits, and his lips curled back to reveal rows of crystalline teeth that could shear through titanium plating. A low, rumbling growl emanated from deep within his chest, a sound that triggered primal fear responses in most sentient species. Instructor Vexthan, a towering Keshari warrior with scars crossing his muzzle, took a step forward, his hand moving toward the neural disruptor at his belt. The human was in grave danger. Even a cub of Taro's age, barely 6 solar cycles old, possessed the strength to crush bone and tear flesh. The Academy had seen 3 serious incidents in the past decade, involving Kashari cubs and other species. None had ended well, but Lena didn't retreat. She didn't call for help. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she did something that would be discussed in xenopsychology classes for years to come. She snarled back. The sound that emerged from Lena's throat was raw and guttural, a perfect mimicry of a Kashari's challenge growl. Her lips pulled back to show her flat, omnivorous teeth laughably small compared to Taro's fangs. Yet somehow the gesture carried the same aggressive intent. Her brown eyes locked with Taro's golden ones, and she held his gaze without wavering. For a heartbeat, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then Taro's ears twitched. His tail, which had been lashing dangerously, began to slow. The rigid tension in his haunches eased, and his growl softened into something that almost resembled confusion. And then Lena laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh or a laugh of relief. It was a deep, genuine belly laugh that echoed across the courtyard. She rocked back on her heels and reached out, scruffing Taro behind his ears with absolutely no hesitation. "You think you're scary, huh? Come on, tough guy. You're not fooling anyone." Taro's response was immediate and shocking. The cub's aggressive posture collapsed entirely. He butted his massive head against Lena's hand, a purring rumble replacing his earlier growl. His tail wrapped around her arm not as a restraint, but as an affectionate gesture. "By the eternal hunt," Vex then breathed, his hand falling away from his weapon. She dominated a challenge from a cub. "Vex, that's impossible," whispered Cadet Zimrai, a slender Valerian whose species had evolved as prey animals. Her 4-fingered hands trembled as she clutched her datapad. "Humans are Class 3 species. They have no natural weapons, no armor plating, no venom. They shouldn't be able to. They're not supposed to survive at all," interrupted Cadet Kresh, a reptilian Saurix with a ridge of protective scales running down his back. "Their homeworld is a death world. Gravity that would crush most of us, predators in every biome, diseases that adapt faster than their medicine. They shouldn't have made it past their industrial age." Lena stood up, wiping dust from her training uniform, completely oblivious to the stunned silence surrounding her. Taro trotted at her heels like an oversized house cat, his earlier aggression completely forgotten. She glanced around at the other cadets and frowned. "What? He was just playing. You guys have never roughhoused with a friend before?" Vexen approached slowly, his predatory instincts telling him to move carefully around this strange human. "Cadet Lena," he said, his voice a deep rumble. "You do understand that Taro could have killed you? His species has taken down armored prey twice your size." Lena shrugged, reaching down to scratch Taro's chin. The cub melted against her leg, his purring intensifying. "Sure, he could have, but he wasn't going to. He's a kid. Kids test boundaries. They push to see what they can get away with. You just have to show them you're not scared, and that you're willing to play by their rules. Play by their rules? Zimray's voice pitched higher. Their rules involve bite force that exceeds 3,000 newtons. Yeah, well, our rules on Earth involved grizzly bears, lions, and great white sharks. Lena said matter-of-factly. Humans have been living alongside predators since before we had written language. You learn to read body language, understand intent, establish dominance when necessary. It's not that complicated. Kresh's scales rippled with agitation. Your species evolved alongside those creatures. You had millions of years to adapt. We've been spacefaring for 10,000 years, and we still maintain respectful distance from apex predators. Maybe that's your problem, Lena said, grinning. She knelt down and began a proper play session with Taro, who immediately pounced on her, careful to keep his claws retracted. You guys treat everything dangerous like it's just dangerous. You don't see the individual. Taro here isn't just a juvenile Kashari apex predator. He's Taro. He's curious, playful, testing his limits. Yeah, he's got teeth and claws, but he's also got feelings and a personality. Vex then watched the human and his nephew roll around in the dust, something ancient stirring in his memory. Stories passed down from the first Kashari who had encountered humans during the contact wars. Tales of impossible courage, of humans charging Kashari battle lines with nothing but projectile weapons and determination. At the time, the Kashari had dismissed it as foolish suicide tactics. Now, watching Lena wrestle with Taro, Vex then began to understand. It wasn't foolishness. It wasn't even courage. Not really. It was something more fundamental. Humans simply didn't recognize the same boundaries that other species did. They saw danger not as a wall to retreat from, but as a challenge to understand and overcome. They befriended predators, conquered death worlds, and laughed in the face of things that should terrify them. Because to humans, everything was negotiable, even fear itself. Taro managed to pin Lena's arm with his paw, and she immediately countered by booping his nose with her free hand. The mighty cub recoiled in surprise, and Lena seized the opportunity to reverse their positions. She held him down barely, given his superior strength, and made an exaggerated growling sound. Taro's response was to go completely limp and expose his belly in a gesture of submission and trust. Good boy, Lena cooed, rubbing his stomach. Who's a fierce warrior? You are. Yes, you are. The assembled cadets exchanged glances. Cadet Zimrai slowly lowered her datapad. I need to revise my thesis on human psychology, she muttered. Everything I wrote is clearly incomplete. We all do, Kresh agreed. Every species that's ever encountered humans does. Vex then crossed his arms, his tail swishing thoughtfully. Cadet Lena, he called out. You'll be assisting with Taro's socialization training for the remainder of the semester. Clearly, you have skills we did not anticipate. Lena looked up, her face flushed from exertion, dust in her dark hair, and a grin stretching from ear to ear. Really? That's awesome. Hear that, Taro? We're going to be training buddies. Taro's response was to tackle her again, and her laughter rang out across the courtyard. As the other cadets slowly dispersed, still shaken by what they'd witnessed, Zimray paused beside Vexen. Instructor, she said quietly, I have a question. If humans can dominate a Kashari cub through nothing but will and confidence, what else can they do? Vex's then scarred face creased into what might have been a smile. That, cadet, is what the galaxy is still trying to figure out, and I suspect will be trying for a very long time. In the center of the courtyard, Lena and Taro had moved on to a game of chase, the humans' delighted shouts mixing with the cub's playful roars. To any outside observer, it was a scene that should have been impossible. A fragile human and a deadly predator, playing together as if they were the same species. But to those who understood humans, it was simply Tuesday. Because humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their weapons. It was their absolute refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. They looked at the universe's most dangerous creatures and saw potential friends. They looked at death worlds and saw homes. They looked at challenges that would break other species and saw opportunities. And when a predator cub growled at them, they growled back, laughed, and made a new friend. That was what it meant to be human. That was why the galaxy had learned to make room for them, no matter how much they defied logic and natural order. And as the twin suns of the Academy world set on the horizon, casting long shadows across the training grounds, one truth became crystalline, clear to everyone present. Humanity, despite all logic and reason, would always find a way, and the galaxy was all the more interesting for it.